Free, 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 from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. And from the sea to the river.
To our government, they ought to be. Do something to save his life so he may continue his calling to save the lives of others. It's the least the British government can do. It takes a lot for a man like Dr. Abu Safia to abandon hope. When his hospital came under attack by Israel with munitions, propaganda and smears, he refused to abandon his patients. Resiliently stood by them and gave them the best treatment he could with what dwindling resources he had left, sustaining the last hospital for children in Gaza until his abduction. This is not an isolated example. That does not diminish the severity of the situation. It serves to broaden our awareness of the present situation in Palestine. 6 healthcare workers have been killed in Israeli detention since October 2023. Israel holds more than 9,000 Palestinian political prisoners in detention also, including 350 children. They all face systematic torture, sexual violence and ill treatment. Often they are held without charge.
And we need all of the children detained in military hospital, in military prisons, to be free. The UN report states that since the attack in October 23, 20,000 children have been deliberately targeted and killed by the IDF, and 40,000 more have been injured. These are barbaric actions of the Israeli government, and they need to be condemned. What happened to a rule-based law? They've been allowed to be decimated by this regime, and our government has turned a blind eye. But comrades, more needs to happen. And sadly, on Monday, my comrade, John McDonnell, wanted to submit, or he submitted an urgent question on Dr. Safia. However, it was not granted. We are not being given the opportunity to debate these actions in Parliament.
These are not controversial demands. They are the minimum that any civilized society should accept. Today, we call on the British government to stop looking away. We call for urgent action and the other hostage doctors. We call for the access to all Palestinian hostages by the Red Cross and other independent organizations.
From the river to the sea! From the sea to the river! From the sea to the river! Free, free! Free, free!
Last week I raised in Parliament two of the latest cases, which is Dr Rantisi, who is known as the Doctor of the Poor in the West Bank. If you believe in saints, he's a saint, and I do believe in saints. He's a saint. He's given his life to the poor of the West Bank, and for that service to humanity, he's been detained. And then, of course, we've got Dr. Safia. I raised his case as well last week, and then by the weekend we got the further report. Then we got the further report from his lawyer who'd visited him and came out of prison in a state of absolute shock. And the message that we got on the Friday, I think it was that unless action is taken, he will die. And he will die as a result of the brutality and the torture that's experienced in prison itself by the IDF. And too many have died. So on the Saturday we raised it. I contacted the government minister, Hamish Fulton, and said, look, this guy's going to die unless there's action. And the response that we got back, we'll investigate it. I said, look, fine. I said, fine, but this investigation needs to be a matter of urgency because this man's life is at risk. So on Monday, exactly as Jim said, I put down an urgent question for the House of Commons to get the Minister to the House of Commons, and the Speaker denied it. So we put it down again today, and the Speaker denied it. So we're putting it down tomorrow again. If any of you can, whether it's through social media or contacting your MP, just urge the Speaker to accept it. The Speaker did come back to me and said, look, you can apply for an adjournment debate. That usually takes a week. And I went back and said, he might not be alive in a week if we don't get him out. So the key thing now is to maximise the pressure on the UK government to say we want the immediate release of both these doctors and the other 560 health workers that have been arrested because they are not safe under the IDF. They're tortured and murdered in custody. But I just say this as well, when we raise this in Parliament, as eventually we'll use whatever mechanism we can, in addition to securing the release, we want the UK government to instigate the process to bring these murderers to trial. Under any international law, the targeting of journalists, the targeting of doctors is a criminal offence. But I tell you what the worst criminal offence is, the targeting and murder of so many children in Gaza and across the West Bank as well. We will not forgive what went on. We will demand justice. And I've said before, I want to live long enough to see Netanyahu before a criminal court and in prison.
You're all heroes for being here because we're in the midst of a very, very long struggle in support of the Palestinian people. And if we falter, and if we weaken, and if we give up, and if we disappear, most of us have the option of doing nothing. If you're a Palestinian person living in Gaza, losing your home on the West Bank, in prison in Israel, or in exile, or in a refugee camp somewhere, you don't have any choice, you don't have any option. The only way you survive is by your continual objection to the occupation, your objection to the imprisonment, your objection to the destruction of homes and schools, and your objection to the policies of genocide. They have no choice. So it's up to us to show our total solidarity with all the people of Palestine.
In December 2024, the world saw an image that should be seared into our collective conscience. A paediatrician in a white coat walking alone through the rubble of the last northern Gaza hospital towards an Israeli armoured vehicle. And that paediatrician was Dr Hussam Abu Safia, director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, a doctor who had led his hospital through an 85-day siege, who had refused to abandon his patients, and who had to bury his own murdered son while continuing to treat the children of others. That was more than 18 months ago. Dr Abu Safia has been held ever since, without charge, without trial, detained under Israel's unlawful competence law, which permits indefinite detention on the basis of material that neither he or his lawyers are permitted to see. Last month, Israel's Supreme Court upheld his continued detention until at least October. The United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention has said that his detention is arbitrary and unlawful and demanded his immediate release. Physicians for Human Rights Israel have said that he's facing daily violence and beatings and that his condition is life-threatening. And as we've already heard, on the 2nd of July, his lawyer visited him in the Rakavet facility, which is an underground detention block which was once closed down for its inhumane conditions. And the lawyer found him shackled hand and foot, barely recognisable, bruised throughout his head and body, struggling to breathe and drifting in and out of consciousness. And he said to his lawyer, "This is the last time you'll see me." We can't allow that to happen. The principle of medical neutrality is a principle written into the Geneva Conventions that Britain helped to draft. Doctors are not combatants. Hospitals and ambulances are not targets. Healthcare must be protected in war. Dr. Abu Safia is one of almost 500 health workers unlawfully detained since October 2023. More than 1,500 of his healthcare colleagues have been killed. If we allow the world's most basic rules of war to be shredded in Gaza, we should not imagine they will hold anywhere else. Healthcare is already under attack in the West Bank, in Lebanon and beyond, in Sudan, Yemen, Myanmar, Syria, the list goes on. The Safeguarding Health in Conflict Coalition has documented over 2,500 attacks on healthcare in 33 countries last year, and these attacks on healthcare have been intensifying year on year over the past decade, mainly from state actors. And meanwhile, accountability has shifted from states to civilians, with health facilities now having to prove that they are not involved in military activities, rather than being automatically protected as they should be. Now, last year, the Labour Party members and affiliates passed the motion unequivocally calling for its leadership, the Labour government, to fully suspend the UK government's arms trade with Israel. Yet almost a year later, we remain complicit in this genocide. And targeting Gaza's healthcare is to target its entire population, and that is a genocide.
Our next speaker is Chris Needham, speaking on behalf of the Stop the War Coalition. Please give him a very warm welcome.
The security talk is also being used as the main justification for attacks on social care, for attacks on the NHS, for attacks on infrastructure, for attacks that ordinary people in this country actually need and do provide some sort of security in the real world. The resistance is growing. We had a conference in Westminster Central Hall of 3,000 activists across Europe committing to fighting a campaign across this continent for cuts to warfare and not to welfare. And that conference called for an international day of demonstrations across Europe and the world on the 3rd anniversary of the genocide on October the 10th. So start building that protest in London now.
Keir Starmer, you can't hide! 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 Free, free! Okay, our next speaker.
Israeli attacks on healthcare workers and infrastructure in Palestine in order to continue a genocidal regime of terror against the Palestinian people. Today, more than 160 healthcare workers sit in Israeli prisons. More than 500 have been arrested since 2023, with many reporting torture, and more than 1,500 have been killed. Meanwhile, Israeli strikes on hospitals and clinics have decimated vital infrastructure and overwhelmed the healthcare system in an attempt to murder people systematically. Let's call it what it is. These are war crimes. These are war crimes being committed by a state that has been met with silence from many governments, including the one situated across the road.
Our next speaker is Dr Hussam, who's a paediatric intensive care doctor who's worked in Palestine for many years. Please give her a really warm welcome.
Pictures of nurses like Nurse Ali in the ICU are on the wall now, a nurse who was so dedicated last year and refused to take breaks when the rest of us took breaks. I caught up with another nurse colleague friend of mine this last time I was in Gaza who was detained for 53 days. He reports physical torture, Sexual torture that I don't want to describe here, it's so dehumanizing. He was released and he now has tuberculosis as a consequence of his detention and cannot access treatment for himself nor his infant daughter. One of my previous students, Dr. Muhammad Ghanem, a young ER doctor who was killed almost 2 years ago by a quadcopter drone after steadfastly caring for his patients for over 400 days, while the hospitals in which he was moving and working were repeatedly besieged. 6 months before he was killed, he said, Al-Shifa Hospital was under siege while I was inside it 3 times, and I was forcefully removed from it twice. This time it was the most severe, both in terms of the siege, the incursion, and the amount of destruction. We were 13 doctors in the emergency department. All of us were tortured to different degrees, and 6 doctors were injured or arrested.
Tarek Al-Abadi, who's speaking on behalf of the Palestinian Forum in Britain. Please give him a very warm welcome.
Good evening, everyone, and peace be upon you all. On behalf of the Palestinian Forum in Britain, thank you for making time to be here today. On these dark days, your commitment to justice gives me and Palestinians around the world reason for hope. So thank you. Today, we stand for Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, as he stood for numerous others. A doctor who stood by his patients to the last moment. A doctor who saved lives. Today, his own life is in mortal danger. And a chilling quote comes to my mind, and I'm sure many of you here today. The best of the world are being massacred by the worst of the world, whilst the rest of the world watches. The best of the world are being massacred by the worst of the world while the rest of the world watches. We have been told and we have seen through the images from the courtrooms that he is suffering immensely. He is suffering under Israeli torture. His lawyer has seen him, but we fear that he might be the last compassionate soul to see him on this earth. And this is what we know about Dr. Hussam. And I want everyone to pay some mind to those who we know nothing of, to those who we do not know if they are alive at this moment, those whose names we will not hear, and those whose names their families will remember, but the rest of the world will not have the privilege of remembering. And today we speak of that pain. We speak of a double pain. In fact, no, a triple, quadruple, I don't know what the biggest one of those would be, but an immense pain. And we speak of the pain of every single individual in Gaza, but even more so of the hostages who have been taken and put into these concentration camps. So join me as I say today, enough is enough. Enough is! Thank you. Today, we ask you to support the Red Ribbon campaign. Many of you will have seen it today and maybe at past protests. But it is a symbol, and through this symbol, we call on the International Committee of the Red Cross to act today. We call on this government to act today. And we call on every single person on earth with some form of conscience to act today. Do not wait. This cannot wait. We need action now. We don't need words. We don't need platitudes. And as everyone knows, we need action now.
Stop killing doctors! Stop bombing hospitals! Stop killing doctors! Stop bombing hospitals!
The kind of person Dr. Hussam is. An expert pediatrician and neonatalist. Director of the Kamal Adwan Hospital in the Gaza Strip. Dr. Hussam, like the majority of Palestinians in Gaza, comes from a refugee family displaced by Israel in 1948. In December 2024, he was abducted and imprisoned by the Israeli military at the same time that Israel attacked and forcibly closed his hospital, part of the deliberate and systematic destruction of the healthcare system in Gaza. Now, when Israel began to attack the hospital, the Israeli military said that they would allow him and a few others to leave. But he refused, so long as staff and patients remained, even when his own colleagues urged him to go, he stayed. That is what Dr. Hussam represents. The love, the care, the unbreakable resilience of the Palestinian people, an unshakable commitment to his people and his homeland. And that is why he is so dangerous to Israel. That is why they torture him in their dungeons.